involved in and be a participant in, and something that is totally unique around the country. The representation that we have, the ability for citizen involvement is greater than it is in any other state in Indiana, because in many cases, not that I intended to ever get involved in politics, but when I started getting my feet wet by getting on with a group of citizens to try and take some action and make sure that we were keeping our education here locally, I found out that I could really impact the state decision, and that was something that was very unusual to me. I started noticing also that what was going on in Concord and Washington, D.C. impacted my family, and so I gathered with another group of citizens, and we started the Family Policy Council here, Cornerstone Policy Research. And our primary goal was to get well-researched information about the different issues out to not only the legislatures, but also to the public, because it was the public that was going to be casting their votes, and I wanted them to be informed on what the issues were, at least from my perspective. And I worked, the organization is one of 43 different state organizations around the country, and the reason I particularly liked this model was that the money that you raised in the state to impact the state, all stayed in the state. It didn't, like many organizations, go down to a central office someplace at a national level and then get parsed back to you. And that's basically my whole philosophy about government, too, is that I started looking at it and saying, you know, how much is it when we get a grant that comes into the state from the federal government for a particular program, how much is it costing us to get that money back? And basically, for every $14 we send to Washington, D.C., we only get back about $10. And in the state of New Hampshire, you know, it means that we might have been able to do something more with that extra $4 if it actually stayed here in the state. So as my view of the role of a United States Senator would be that they would go down there and make sure that the states were able to handle the issues and the activities that really belong at the state level and are better handled here, because when you deal with people at a local level, you build a relationship with them, you can address not only maybe their food needs, but you can also address some of the other needs that they might have. They might have a clothing need, they might have some other a work need. And when you're close with them, seeing them on a regular basis, you are better able to address those issues. So let me back up a little bit more and tell you a little bit more about myself. I grew up in California in the Central Valley. My dad was an accountant, my mother was a bookkeeper. I worked my way through college, graduated from the University of California at San Jose with a microbiology degree. And then I got married, and we had 4 children. My husband then went into the Air Force. My dad served in the 447 during World War II, and I thought that was kind of neat. I used to go different places with him for reserve kinds of duties, but I never thought I'd be married to somebody who actually made a career out of the military. But my husband did, and we had 4 children. They're all adults. 3 of the 4 have or are still serving in the military, and an Air Force son, a Navy son, and a Coast Guard daughter. So then we now have 11 grandchildren. So it's been a real blessing to have this nice little family. The other thing, thank you. The other thing that I've done in the state of New Hampshire, besides running the Family Policy Council, was back in 2010. I did run for governor for the state. And one of my goals in running was to show that the average person could still run. It didn't have to be somebody with a lot of means. And so I was very fortunate. We raised just under $50,000. My whole team was all volunteer, which was really amazing to me, because that said to me, and we broke double digits. So that said to me that you still can be a citizen as our founding fathers intended it to be, who would go and serve and then come back and live under the rules that you were supposed to be. I'm not a big proponent of a long term. You go down, I think you should go serve your 1 or 2 terms and then come back, and it's up to the will of the people. I'm not in favor of legislative term limits for this reason. I think it's the will of the people that is supposed to make that final decision, and when we legislate it, and we take that liberty away from you. And so that's basically where I'm coming from. I can tell you about 2 or 3 of the major issues that are out in front of us right now. I know you probably are all dealing in some way, shape, or form with Obamacare, the Affordable Health Care Act, which I question how affordable it really is when we've got people who are being pushed off of the scope. While we're bringing some people on, we're also taking away the liberty of some who don't want insurance. I just had a conversation with someone at the Country Kitchen. He said, you know, I'm a small businessman, I'm young, I don't need health care, I don't want to take it, and yet it's being forced upon me to do so. And I look at it too, and I see that it is really about taxing people in various stages. There are so many taxes that keep coming up. And I thought when I came across the list of 20 that was outrageous. But there are others that keep creeping into the overall picture. And while there are some elements that are good about it, like the pre-existing care conditions, there are also people who are being pushed off who have pre-existing conditions, but now they can't see the doctor they wanted to see, they can't see go to the hospital they wanted to go to, they can't get the medications they wanted. So, you know, it's I'm not sure that what was intended is what the final outcome was. And the other thing I keep looking at is how much money we are spending on taxes. And every time we take that dollar away from here, that's under my control, and put it over here under government control, I now lose the ability to make that decision. Does it go to help my neighbor, or does it go to help a cause that I want it to go to, or is it even putting my, food on my table and a roof over my head? Many times it's that this pile grows bigger and bigger and bigger. It takes away my ability to spend on this end. And we're now, it's amazing how much money we're now spending on different things. Passing the 4 tax for gases that just went through is another 4 cents. It doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you add it up over the year, and you add it to the truckers' bill, for example, and how much money they spend every day on gas, and then find out that now it's being passed through to your food bill, to your gas bill, to your your house bill, whatever it is, if it's construction or whatever. That's more money that means that you can't now. It adds to what it's costing you to put that food on your table, that roof over your head, the clothes on your back, and so on. So this is something I think we really have to do, is go down to Washington and make sure that that money stops being spent down there on things that the government is not supposed to be doing. If we look at our Constitution, which is only on 20 pages, by the way, and not on a whole lot more, and we're passing 2,000-page bills. It sounds a little ridiculous in my way of thinking. And so I think there's so many things that we're doing at the national level that is outside the purview of the Constitution, which said we were supposed to provide for national defense, make sure that any commerce that was occurring between states and around the world was being done in a fair and equitable and a predictable manner, and that we were supposed to be providing for the infrastructure, those roads and the communication highways that we have. Those are the only 3 things that are supposed to be being done by the federal government, and yet we're spending 68% of our budget on health, education, welfare, and pensions. Those are things that really should be up to the state to handle. If the states were handling it, we weren't taking the money we were taking in the first place, you probably would be doing a much more efficient job. You'd be spending that $14 instead of just giving back 10 with directions on how you're supposed to spend it. So that's basically why I'm running for the U.S. Senate, because I see my country in a real turmoil, and I want to make sure that we get back to our constitutional form of government and allowing our states to be the sovereign states that we're supposed to be, not dependent states on a centralized government. So with that, I appreciate it. We have literature. I'd like you to look at it and see what you think. If you like what you see, I'd appreciate your vote. I appreciate your help. This is not an easy thing to go out and do every day. It's not so much just the running around. It's unfortunately, you have to have the money in order to get the message out, and that's the bigger part of it. So if you have any questions, I'd really like to hear what you have to say. Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of them, actually. Your views are definitely that of the minority party. And how are you going to make change against big government, big business? How do you propose to do that?
Well, part of it is the voice. I mean, it's if you go back to Samuel Adams, he said it's not a majority that prevails, it's an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedoms in the hearts and minds of men. And I think you definitely have to go down and make sure that the people of New Hampshire are represented. That we are saying, don't call us domestic terrorists. We're not domestic terrorists because we want to exercise our freedom to speak out on the issue, or we want to assemble and say, congregate on the steps of Concord and say, wait a minute, we don't like this particular bill and we want our voices to be heard. That's our protected constitutional right. And we need voices that go down and actually stand for that and aren't afraid to say to whatever committee chairman it is, I don't care about your power, I don't care about the money, I want to represent the people that I'm here to represent. And I want to make sure that we have that ability to do that. And, you know, it's like Cindy Lou in the Village. We are here, we are here, we are here. And when we say that loud enough and long enough, eventually it does get through.
Okay. Can you tell me your thoughts on welfare reform?
Welfare reform was working really, really well under President Clinton actually signed into law a welfare reform bill that was actually doing what it needed to be doing, which is to make sure that people were getting that hand up and not just getting that hand out. When the current administration came in, they said they completely nixed that and put it all back to giving everybody a hand down. And look where it's getting us right now. We've got more and more people on it. I think there's a lot of things that we can do to improve it. One of them is to restore the family, the vision of an intact family that gets along and stays together for a long period of time, because the majority of our costs are increased, and poverty of children. We spend $500 million a year on child poverty, and most of that is because we've got single mothers or single parent families. And we've sort of lost this vision of keeping families together. And I think one of the things that we've done is we've put rose-colored glasses on everybody and said, those kids aren't supposed to be loud and obnoxious, and they're not ever supposed to fight. So, and we say that a couple is supposed to get married and they're never supposed to fight. Everything is supposed to be a Cinderella story. And it's not. It's hard work to be a family. It's hard work to get along with one another. And it's hard work to get that work ethic where everybody pulls in and does what's best for the whole unit and moves it forward. And we stay together no matter what. It reminds me of one man who said to his kid, look outside. those aren't the people that are gonna come save you. It's your brother right here that's gonna be your best friend. And so let's work it out and figure out how do we make sure that we're taking care of one another. I think the family unit is really a very strong element that seems to be overlooked by the majority of the people who always want to concentrate on jobs and the economy. Well, where do you get your work ethic? And where do you get the economy that's going to get you forward? It's through that family unit. That really is the building block of our country. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Karen, welcome to Revitalization.
Thank you.
A couple of questions. First one is, a lot of people now that have Obamacare, or somehow they think they have it, the problem you're running into is the elderly right now is being kicked side the head, literally. And you can't get care like you used to. I have friends that say, the doctor told them, had this been under Obamacare, you wouldn't have got this patient. People are not getting medication. It's almost like hurry up and die so there's no history of our country anymore. How do you take a look at that? But I also want to ask a second question because it came in the news today. That supposedly Gene Shaheen is going to have a photo op with Harry Reid on let's push ahead the pipeline. And to me, the word is the phoniness of Washington is filtering back to the states. And we're running, is this Versailles all over again? What's going on? And how are you going to represent New Hampshire and the United States at the same time?
Well, representing the state of New Hampshire is representing the United States because we were originally 13 individual states that grew to 50, that we are supposed to be sovereign states. We take care of what works in our state. We are not a one-size-fits-all. We know it doesn't work, and that's what the major problem with Obamacare is that we've been given this this act, this variety of solutions that is supposed to work for literally everyone. So you've got a man who has to have maternity care on his insurance, or he can't have that insurance policy. What sense does that make unless you've now become this miracle out of nowhere? One size does not fit all, and that's why we are individual states, and we need to push that vision back into place. And that means it's going to be some tough times for a while. For a lot of people, it's not going to turn around and go back the way it should be, where the central government is only doing the three things that are enumerated in the Constitution. It's going to mean pushing back to the states and allowing the states to do that. But at that point, you're going to be cutting the overall expenditures. You're going to reduce the responsibility, or not the responsibility, the dictatorship of the federal government, which it is right now. How you're supposed to live your life. The spying on you through the NSA, controlling you through the IRS. I mean, it's completely upside down on what our founding fathers wanted us. They wanted us to be individuals who had the personal responsibility to take care of what we had, to pursue our dreams. If we failed, to learn from our failures and to pick up ourselves and go on and keep persevering. Obamacare right now is a death sentence for most of the elderly. You just turn around, there's one, and I can't exactly remember exactly what it was, but it was after the age of 70, you could no longer qualify for certain things. After the age of 76, you can no longer qualify. We've got people that are living until their 90s, and I talked to somebody just yesterday who was in Arizona celebrating her father-in-law's 99th birthday. And we're going to say to that man, you can't have health care anymore because you're over 76 or you're over 70. That's just absolutely absurd. And those are the people that we should be listening to in some cases, because look at the wisdom that we get as we get older and we experience various things. So I think it's really a problem. And the main thing that we have to do with Obamacare is not that the healthcare not that we don't have problems in our healthcare situation, but certainly we at the local level can do a better job of fixing it, rather than at the federal level. Anyone else?
Any other questions?
Well, I want to say thank you very much for letting me come and share with you, and certainly my information is on the brochures. If you have any questions or you have any thoughts that you want to share with me, please don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call. Don't hesitate to send an email or whatever might be there. I'd be happy to respond to you individually. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Karen, and we wish you luck in your
Thank
venture.
you. And congratulations on all the work you've been doing. Newport is an exciting place. I came for the parade in the wintertime, in the middle of the winter. Everybody said, you're going to a parade in the winter. It was so exciting to see all the activity that went on during that week, and I want to congratulate you because it makes it, this is what we would like to see where I come from, in Franklin, is more activities being done and the growth of the local community. So congratulations on what you've done.
And you're going to be at Salt Hill Pub later, I understand.
I am going to be at the Salt Mill. Yes, it is a good place.
Just to get attendance here.
Thank you.
They're just looking for a signature.